why would we start the Sun? Everybody has a dream to do their own thing, I suppose, journalistically.
Well, I think the originated basically because the Telegram closed. We were out of work. We felt there was room for another paper, and so we decided to see if it was possible.
At the Sun, Creighton, Hunt, and myself, anybody who's been with the Sun has had a glorious run at it. You know, with nobody looking over your shoulder, and doing what you think should be done. And when it works, it works. And when it doesn't, we have another run at it.
Go!
That's the sound of the presses of the Toronto Sun early this morning. The paper was held so that we could bring you an up-to-date 10-page special report on yesterday's tragic events in Washington. The presses sat ready as we gathered all reports from political analysts and the staff at the Sun.
Hey, Grace, hand me the cover of today's Sun. That color shot of the space shuttle looks so fantastic, I'm going to put it up on the wall.
Hey, look, here's an article. TTC General Manager Michael Warren is becoming the president of the new post office.
He's sure going to have to find the better way to keep that outfit on the tracks.
Uh-oh, Dunford's playing I've Got a Secret again.
Oh, yeah?
He says a certain Toronto MP will step down from his post in the next few weeks because of personal reasons. Whoa.
The Toronto Sun, the little paper that grew.
There was only one edition of the telegram today instead of the usual 3 or 4, but they printed twice as many as usual. At first, nothing seemed very different, but by mid-morning, the fact that today was indeed the last day to buy the telegram was beginning to sink in, and the rush was on. The telegram's final editorial today was written by the publisher. In it, Mr. Bassett said that 800 of the newspaper's 1,200 employees have found jobs elsewhere.
Creighton was going to go to Air Canada, and Hunt was going to go and live on a beach in California or something. And then I came home and I began to kick myself for, you know, what the hell, give it a shot anyway. So then called Eddie Goodman.
The original plan, they said the plans called for $1 million, and I thought that I'd have some difficulty getting that much, but I thought I could get pretty close to about 700,000 or $750,000. Actually, we didn't quite make 700,000.
We were up walking along a beach in Port Elgin, as a matter of fact, lamenting the fact that we were all going to separate because we really did feel that the paper would work when an old gal by the name of Ella Bolander came down. She ran the bakery in town and said, "There's a phone call for you." And about 10 minutes later, there I was standing in the middle of all the buns, hearing Worthington claiming that they had raised enough money for us to get going.
The purpose was just to get a newspaper started, and everyone that I spoke to, I told that the chances of making money were rather small, and that the purpose was to keep a third newspaper available as an alternative for Toronto. And I want to say that those people who made the investment without a thought of making any money managed to make quite a bit of money in the process.
Let's celebrate. There's a party going on right here, a dedication to last throughout the years. So bring your good times and your laughter too. We gon' celebrate and party with you. Come on now. Celebration. Let's all celebrate and have a good time. Yeah, yeah.
Dunford. Hi, Gary. It's Gene. Hi, Taylor. How you doing? Pretty good. I'm going to have to...
We take about 200 phone calls a day, and they're all, I hate to call them crackpots, but they're all strange people.
They're either strange people who are paid to be strange in the media and entertainment, or just strange people on the street. No.
What about him?
It's a comedy column. We play everything for laughs. I'm not sure that it's gossip at all. I think it's their way of getting back at the system, or that's what I tell myself. It's their little crack back at the world. I like to think it's what one writer does for a living for a couple of years.
How sad.
We'll start with the legs apart a little bit, and then kick your hips out to one side. Your left shoulder back a little bit. Bring your head down just a little bit. They'll love their toast and jam tomorrow. Great stuff. Absolutely gorgeous.
Put it on? No. Cut off. Okay. Oh, there's one other thing, guys, while you're here. What's going on in Chappé today on that Quebec fire? Someone got that?
We haven't got it yet.
You're going to get it, though, eh? I think you might keep that. You might keep that, too.
I remember the first night we had a wake at the Toronto Telegram, and I was in charge of hiring 3 bands, 3 Dixieland bands, at the press club. And then at midnight, we all had to sort of drop over here to this factory across the street and put out a newspaper. There were piles of cardboard boxes. We didn't have typewriters. We didn't have desks. The phones didn't work. We didn't have anything, really. And miraculously, a paper came out the next morning. And I recall that I threw them into a great deal of concern when I plugged in the electric kettle. And I blew all the fuses in the building.
There isn't the slightest reason why the Sun should have worked. You know, we had to, every step we took was there was no dry run, there was no rehearsal, there was no practice. Every roll had to be a 7 or 11, and it was.
I sat home one night and did the logo on the kitchen table. I remember that, doing all kinds of scribbles and bringing them in. Then, once we had the logo design, we based the whole format of the paper was done on the design of the news itself. A screaming headline and a big picture and one story on the front page. And I think we sold 125,000 copies the first day. And the mere fact that it was a tabloid, that it was small and easy to read, and everything was short and punchy and kind of fun, that it just took off.
If you'd been there in the early days, the dedication that the staff gave and the way they worked was really quite amazing. In those days, I and others, investors, were much closer to the newspaper because it was a sort of newspaper you could get close to. I think the success of the Sun is based on the fact that it got to relate to people, you know, right away, right off the bat. I recall just outside the door here once, I think we were in business for a month, and we decided we'd have just a tour of the beautiful downtown Eclipse Whiteware building, and 5,000 people showed up at 5 o'clock one afternoon. We expected about 300, if that. There was a lot of sympathy.
Come on now. Let's all celebrate and have a good time. Celebration. We gon' celebrate and have a good time. It's time to come together. It's up to you.
Characters in the Toronto Sun, well, Worthington, of course. I used to write about looks for communists under every rock. And if he can't lift them, he gets Luber's ink to help him. Creighton, if we were in England, I'm certain he would want to be knighted, at least. Hunt is perhaps the cheapest guy I've ever known, but perhaps the guy who made this paper go the best. He used to pitch baseball, you know. And I'm sure, I'm absolutely certain if you stood at bat against Don Hunt, that he'd brush you back or bean you if he wasn't getting his way.
Well, the early response to Rim said because he was so fresh and so different, and I mean, it would never occur to anybody that a columnist could make fun of his publishers or editors or say the things he did in the papers. It broke absolutely new ground in journalism, which is a tribute to him and I think to the Sun in its way.
Journalism to me is not politicians or bureaucrats. Journalism is transcribing the thoughts and actions and daily life of the people really who read this newspaper. I think in a lot of other newspapers that I've worked for that journalism tends to be cold and dry, and the opportunity here exists that I can go out and find the people who actually read this newspaper, who buy it, the ones that drive the cabs, the ones that ride the buses, the ones that ride the subways, the ones who form 99.9% of this community.
It's a Camelot of a newspaper for anybody who's a self-starter or wants to express his or her own views. I think the columnists have virtual free rein, apart from libel and things like that. They can take any position they want. They don't have to adjust to the Sun's particular line. They can disagree with the Sun editorially and vice versa. The Sun disagrees with columnists. Columnists can disagree with each other. And I think this is very healthy. I think it's the essence of freedom of expression.
I tend to upset, I think, not the general public as much as I do the professional lobbyists. And I don't think they're used to somebody that says, you know, you're all full of crap, that you're wrong, you know, that you're, in the case of homosexuals, you're depraved. I don't think that they're used to people who take that approach. They're used to sort of the media being an extension, almost a public relations extension of what they're trying to do, and that's not the game I play.
Okay, my name's Linda Gooch, and I'm choreographer of the Argo Sunshine Girls, sponsored by the Toronto Sun. I am looking for 28 Argo Sunshine Girls, and I want to thank you all now, because I may not get a chance later, for coming out and trying your very best.
All right. Jumping out on the right foot, your weight is transferred. It's very relaxed and the hand shakes. Watch it. 1. Give me time, I'll make you forget the rest. I got flow. And you can set it free. Give me love and take all I got.
First of all, I'd like to report on Edmonton. Circulation is holding at 90,000. We have the surveys in from Edmonton, and they show this year that Eddie Keane is the #1 read in Edmonton, and Rimstead has fallen, which we will circulate to people after the meeting. Okay, I think we better move on. Linda Ruddy?
Our Sam Ian seminar is sold out. As of Friday, we had 193 registrants, and so we had to scramble and drop our ad from both Sunday and Monday's paper. So within 3 days, that means 2 ads and a mention in Sam Ian's column, we have filled our first seminar.
One of the problems of writing a column is when you sit behind your typewriter, you don't get a chance to meet your readers.
Column is intended to be a place where we can find information. And yes, I received a few letters, well, quite a few actually, saying, how dare you go to that smutty little newspaper where they have Paul Rimstead, for instance, and the Sunshine Girl, and so on and so forth. I don't see it that way. I see the fact that on page 3, yes, there's a woman wearing a bathing suit normally, or short shorts and a see-through top. But as long as there are women willing to pose for those kinds of shots, who am I, or who are you, or who is anyone else, to quibble with that?
So saying we're going to make you rich and famous tomorrow. No, we're just going to make you famous. What do you want us to say about you?
I'm going to be a successful model and an actor someday.
All right.
I love eating a lot of pasta, going sailing someplace far.
Pull your left shoulder back a little bit. Pull your left shoulder back right from the top. Yeah.
We tend to say who we don't like and what we don't like and why. And as I say, there's no room for being confused. If the Sun doesn't like you, we don't stick it to you gently so that you don't know you've been stuck. If you don't know you've been stuck, you've got no nerves or no feelings.
Baby, look at me and tell me what you see. You ain't seen the best of me yet. Give me time, I'll make you forget the rest. I got flow, and you can set it free. I can catch the moon in my hand. Don't you know who I am? Remember my name.
think the big thing is that right from the start, the reason the paper succeeded is the employees. And we still have probably 45 of the original group still working for us. And that I think they were infected from the start with the challenge that we are going to show those people we can put out a paper that will succeed. And I think it's rubbed off on some of the new employees. I think, from my point of view anyway, I think we have a very open door policy. If anyone has a complaint, they can see any one of us at any time. We came in with profit sharing. We told the employees we wanted them to own a piece of the paper. I think all these things tend to help make it that way, and I think we're not as structured as other organizations. I think sometimes it hurts us, but I think in balance is the best way to go.
Okay.
There's no way that you can call the Sun a business newspaper. There's no way that it was ever written for a business audience. It was written for a mass circulation audience. So when they asked me to start a business section, it was a hell of a challenge. For example, the Bay, Simpsons, Thompson newspaper takeover, that the whole department store wars. What did it mean to the average Sun reader? That was the question we had to address. Anybody covered the story, but to cover it and to tell people what it means is the real crux of what we're trying to do. And I think we've succeeded.
We usually put out a special, a Grey Cup special every year.
You do the big story, the scoops, okay, the losers dressing room, right, scoring ways.
If you cover the event with, say, about 5 writers.
Being a news photographer for a big city newspaper is the most fun you can have with your clothes on. A news photographer's job is the ticket to go anywhere and do anything. We're people's window onto the world to a certain degree. That's our job, is to be there and show people what they couldn't see. The picture of Germany coming over the top for the touchdown is going to end up in all 3 papers. I knew that, I think, when I shot it. You know that when they get 3 or 4 yards away, that you focus right on the goal line, and when he crosses it, there's going to be a picture, and there was.
It's easy to write about a winner, champagne flowing, laughter. It's sort of almost the same every year. But in the loser's dressing room, you sometimes find some fascinating story. A certain player who made an error or threw a bad pass or missed a ball, he takes it upon himself to blame himself for the loss of the Grey Cup. And I think a person such as that makes a great call.
I don't think of myself as being a critic who has some sort of form of the good against which all things are measured.
Mama, then you get to now making that bread. Little brother with days sitting out of his head.
But if I can go out to something, have a good time on a Monday night, and turn them on to something for a Tuesday morning that they can have a good time with later on in the week, then that's, then I feel like I've done a good thing.
Well, I don't know. Music gives me energy.
The Sun's kind of always worked at a grassroots level, as far as I'm concerned, and pop music works on people's self-conscious. It's something that becomes a part of their lives in a way that most of the arts, the fine arts, never do. We're dealing with things that people hum in their heads and dance to and work with as a part of their daily lives from beginning to end.
I think that we have found a formula that appeals to readers. The formula is covering most of the news briefly, being quite opinionated, involving readers, having lots of pictures, lots of sports. And I'm convinced now that given a city with the right population, I mean one that's big enough and getting bigger and young enough and staying young, that you could, presuming you did it right, put this product in one of those cities and make it work.
Let's celebrate. It's all right. We're gonna have a good time tonight. Let's celebrate. celebrate. It's all right, baby. We're gonna have a good time tonight.
Welcome to Calgary on behalf of Publisher Stewart, who is our host, and welcome again to the first meeting of the new board of the Toronto Sun for the current financial year. Ask Trudy Egan, our secretary, please to keep the minutes. I think in your material which you've got for the meeting, you'll observe with some pleasure that the profits for the year just ended on April 25 were up 18% from the previous year. The operation showed a profit of $4.4 million, works out to $2.20 a share, which is pretty well close to our prognostication.
There was considerable culture shock in the early days. Our circulation manager used to refer to the people canceling the paper as conscientious objectors. But there is a bit of a shock. An 80-year-old newspaper, the very conservative Albertan, to suddenly have a very dramatic tabloid like the Sun dropped on your doorstep, and it took 6 or 7 months for people to get used to it. The biggest problems faced by us were reorganizing along Sun lines. As a matter of fact, just yesterday we had our board of directors in town upviewing our new site. We're building a new plant and new office towers up on the Deerfoot, just 5 minutes north of the Herald.
Try and give you a brief description of where we are, what we're doing, and how we're trying to get there. After the concrete piles, we'll have some concrete work, and then the structural steel will move in for the superstructure on the production facility. On goes the roof deck, the metal siding, and we're pretty well closed in for the winter.
A lot of people who don't read newspapers normally read the Sun. It's in Calgary. The average age of Calgarians is 23, probably the youngest for a major city in Canada. So the Sun suits it very well.
We're now, I think, the only competitive newspapers in this country. The only competitive cities, newspaper cities in Canada, are cities in which the Sun is fighting. And it's a curiosity that I think we're born to fight. You know, we wouldn't be any good in a monopoly market. Where the competition is strongest, we seem to do the best. All of them. Toronto is the most competitive city in the country. Calgary and Edmonton were the strong monopolies, and we go right into the lion's den.
Good afternoon, Edmonton Sun. City desk, 1 moment, please.
Yeah, the gunman who shot the Mountie got life today, and we talked to the Mountie and his wife afterwards. We got some pretty good comments from them. The wife describing how she's living in fear whenever.
I don't think any city is ready for the Toronto Sun style, and that's probably one of the reasons why we're so successful. It's such a brand new marketing concept. It's so daring. It's cheeky, irreverent, and in today's market, if you don't shock people a little bit, you're not liable to get their attention. But when I say shock people, I don't mean in the sense of irresponsibility. You have to be responsible while you're shocking or being cheeky with people. And there's no question that any new city that the Toronto Sun Corporation moves into is going to shock people at first. But it doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that we're probably marketing well and we've gotten people's attention. The future for the Edmonton Sun is to be #1 in Edmonton, and I'm convinced, and when I first came here 2 years ago, I said within 5 years we'll be #1 in Edmonton, and we will be. And we're showing that we can be.
It feels great because I've got that freedom, and it's a job that I've always wanted to do. I've always loved doing it, and I think it's great just following the news every day and making some kind of a statement and having it printed in the paper the next day. It's sort of an immediate thing, and then the next day comes along and you're on to something else, and it just goes on day after day.
Leonard, Mr. Donato.
It's all yours.
Don't screw it up. What we got here?
There things are going for the Tories. Now that we've called it majority government, perhaps he may have something to say. Bill Davis himself, as he said, has been re-elected in Brampton.
The official thing.
3, 4, $5.
Okay, the Tories, comma. All right. Oozing optimism from the outset, comma.
Oozing or boozing? Okay, I'll bring losing optimism.
Optimism from the outset.
And my commitment to them is very simple. To justify their faith
and their trust as Premier of this province.
I'm in journalism, I guess, because I was sort of directed that way when I was a young fellow. I started working at the Telegram for the summer, and it was during the war, and they were kind of short of reporters. And my boss at the time said, "If you stay on, we'll give you a chance as a reporter." There was an old fellow on the staff who used to sit at the back of the room. He wore a hat on his head, and his feet were on his typewriter all the time. I thought, by God, now that's the job for me. So I started as a reporter, and I haven't stopped since, and I never have had a chance to put my feet up on the desk.
I often explained it to new slot men. It's like a toboggan ride. You know, you get to the top of the hill and you sit on the toboggan, and it's very slow, and it gets faster and faster. By the time we get down to deadline, everything's out of control. I mean, you're going so fast, you really don't know what's happening. You're just lucky to get off the floor in time, and you just wonder if everything has turned out all right.
It says Sunday Sun, over 400,000, November 1980. Don Hunt, could we now have, we had to get an extra long one for Don? Well, I hope that it fits. Now, if it doesn't fit, that's something else. Oh, yeah, it fits. How about yours, Peter?
This is not a night for speeches, but it's a night for really feeling just terrific that we've reached a milestone that no one ever really thought, including the founders of this paper, that we really would. And I'm just going to ask Peter Worthington and Don Hunt to join with me, because we like wine anyway, and we're going to propose a toast to all of you who made 400,000 really worthwhile. Thank you very much.
I think that the Sun 10 years from now will be in 2 or 3 more cities, have expanded our base to include media-related but not necessarily newspapers entirely, and I think it will become exceedingly successful.
It's a celebration. Celebrate good times, come on. Come on.